Welcome to the Tudor Dixon Podcast. We get to be at the Job Creators Network Summit today, and I'm so glad that we have with us today a pollster.
Yes.
John McLaughlin is here with us. I was just listening to what you said in the room. So many valuable points. I find this to be one of the most interesting conversations for Republicans right now because we're sitting kind of on this pedestal. We feel really confident about going into 26, and that can cause us to become a little lazy.
Right. And you get complacent. You think that because President Trump did so well, when you think of everything they threw at him. I've worked for President Trump and advised him since 2011. He didn't run that year in 2012, but he ran in 2016. And people didn't think we could win, and we ended up with an electoral victory. And then 2020 looked like we were going to win. Everything's going great. The tax cuts are working. The economy's humming. Millions of jobs. COVID hits. And by 44,000 votes in 3 states, we lose the presidency. So this time around, President Trump was on a mission. He saw Joe Biden dismantling all the policies he put in place. In fact, after President Trump left office, I had a meeting with him with Jason Miller, and I think Brian Jack was there. It was February 10th of 2021. And he's in his office in the ballroom, above the ballroom in Mar-a-Lago, and he's watching the Senate trial of his impeachment. And we had just done a poll of the 17 battleground states. And I said to him, do you realize 63% of the Republicans want you to run again? And he looks up from he's like, really? I said, yes. And you realize that when Joe Biden's policies fail, which they will, just like people I'm an old man. So back in 76, when Reagan didn't win the nomination, 4 years later, after 4 years of failure with Jimmy Carter, Reagan won a landslide. And I said to President Trump, when Biden's policies fail, there'll be buyer's remorse, and you will win the next election. Well, it must not have been just my surveys, but the Democrat surveys, because at that point in time, they tried to confiscate his wealth. Yeah. They tried to put him in jail, take away his civil rights, his right to free speech, and didn't give him enough Secret Service protection that he survived 2 assassination attempts. They tried everything to stop him, and he never was complacent. He was determined. He was on a mission. As they opened the borders, let illegal immigrants in, as they rolled back his tax cut policies, put mandates on the economy, just destroyed American workers' heartland, and the inflationary policies, he got more determined to win.
You make a great point. So what you're saying is the Democrats saw that he was the threat. The person the Democrats are attacking is generally the person they're most afraid of. And they attacked him more than we've ever seen. And he always says, I'm the most attacked person in politics. But I mean, really, it's become so nasty. And I actually was writing last night because a girlfriend of mine reached out to me and said, I saw that you had your daughter at the White House. And she said, I just wanted to say we're praying for you because you posted a picture and the comments were so nasty. And I think this is where we are today, where you have such easy access to attack someone. You have such easy access to go after their family, to go after their kids. They went after President Trump's children. But I think that we were watching this, and we heard today people saying that this was God's intervention to keep him safe because he didn't have the Secret Service, you know. There is a greater plan here, but it's not a passive plan. We have to be active in that plan, and your polls show us that we have to be out there connecting with communities and talking about the right message. And I think it's interesting that you say that you talk about Reagan, because when I was running for governor the first time, I had a guy say to me, when you run the next time, you have a better chance of winning. You won't win this time. And I remember leaving that meeting and thinking, this meeting was terrible. It's terrible. But he said, you're going to learn so much. And I do think that even Trump having the first term, look at what he's been able to think through in the 4 years that he was out of office. It's almost a blessing.
Yes.
I mean, it is a blessing that now he's gone in with so much more knowledge and a different team.
Yes. And he is actually better and more determined, because we ran a campaign that said he would be a better president, and he is being a better president. and he has more knowledge, experience. He's bringing more loyal people around him. He's a businessman. He's not a politician, but he is a historic figure in American history. And when you think about it, when you talk about certain things on the internet, they won last time because they censored him.
Yeah.
On the Hunter Biden laptop story, 36% of the Biden voters were not aware of it because they censored.
Crazy to think that.
They censored the New York Post. They took them off X. They took them off Facebook.
But see, this is the danger right now, I think, because like I said, the media on the Republican side is very cheerful. You know, we talk about the Democrats and like, oh, how stupid that they have all of these people. They don't know what their message is. They can't get it together. AOC is the leader. Cory Booker doing the right thing. All of these, Kamala Harris is giving another speech for $25 a pop. I mean, it all seems very ridiculous right now. But that's where you get complacent. You don't go out and reach out to these groups that you're talking about. And they were just having a panel on the Hispanic community. And I thought some of the messages that we were hearing from people in the audience was like, hey, we feel kind of like you're not hearing the little guy. You're not hearing the business owner. And I think that's something that is more challenging on the national stage. But you were talking about, I think we have 36 governor races coming up this year. 36 states that are going to have to reach out to those communities. And those races are key because those races will help to dictate what happens in the House and Senate, because you've got the top of the ticket has to be talking about the right stuff. So what do you say to those people who are looking to run for those top seat in the state, how they can help along those House and Senate seats so that Trump can continue his last 2 years in office doing great things?
Yes, by the way, my colleague Tony Fabrizio and we polled for President Trump. We both polled for or worked for Arthur Finkelstein, who was our mentor, and he was one of the pollsters for Ronald Reagan. And I used to bring candidates to him and say, before I even worked for him, I would bring a candidate to him and say, so-and-so wants to run for office. And the candidate would say, I've never lost an election. I've been city councilman, I've been mayor, I've been this, never lost an election. And Finkelstein used to say, that's terrible. and the candidate would look and say, why? I've never lost an election. He says, you don't know what you're doing wrong.
That's right.
The strongest candidates in American history, Richard Nixon, lost, came back and won. Ronald Reagan, lost, came back and won. Donald Trump, well, maybe we didn't lose, but we were out of office for 4 years, came back and won. And it's the most historic election. He may be the most consequential president in the history of the United States. And that's kind of unique. But he learned from losing. You've run. You will be a better candidate. And when you talk about governors are the ones who affect education. They're the ones who affect the economic policies that attract jobs. So if the people running for governors, I mean, basically during COVID, we saw with President Trump, governors had a lot of powers. Certain states were open, certain states were closed. It's not just the president. And a lot of because we're a federal system, what goes on locally in states, certain states, you can see people leaving California, people leaving New York, people leaving Michigan, right? And there's a reason for that, because the failed policies. You know, a lot of these states, if you want to succeed, lower taxes, give people more school choice, give people the ability to improve the schools, give people, the ability to have more services and more freedom. And on that freedom index, if they have more freedom, all of a sudden people come back to the states. And a state like Michigan, I mean, Michigan has so many things to offer.
But we have so much overregulation and the licensing and the nickel and diming. I mean, you register your car in Michigan, it's 5 times what you're going to spend in Florida. And that's hard because those little expenses add up and families go, it's too expensive to live here. They just raised hunting licenses. I mean, everything that they can to raise, because think about it. We had a budget that was $50 billion when Gretchen Whitmer took office. It's now almost, I think it just went over 90 million. In 6 years, we went up that much, 40 billion. I mean, you essentially doubled the budget in 6 years. So you have to keep nickel and diming. You double the budget with fewer people. So I was just listening to Senator Joni Ernst in there, and she's talking about freeing up the economy. And that means that you are, by freeing up regulation, you are building the economy. And you were saying to build the economy, to give people money back, you have to build the economy. we talked about Michigan being the hub of automotive, or at least that's what people believe.
But that's the
It
problem.
had been. And that is what the entire state still, yes, that is the pride. That's our legacy. And almost, I would say 90% of our businesses are supportive of that. We have a big agriculture industry, but the other businesses, even the ones that are supporting ag, are sometimes supporting parts for both industries. You know, we are highly automotive, and yet automotive is leaving us because we are the barriers to entry for business in Michigan are so great. And I think that's what people don't understand. It's so hard to just open a business. It's so hard to move to the next steps. Getting the road built, getting the permits, everything's challenging.
Well, by the way, that's why elections have consequences. I mean, at one point with President Trump in 2016, when he was running during the primaries, we were in his office and he just lost Wisconsin. And I was going back to work to help him. And he says to me, and I said, don't worry, you're going to win New York. You'll win Indiana. We'll seal the nomination. But he says to me, do you think I need a tax cut? And I said, of course you need a tax cut. You're running in a Republican primary. And he says, oh, where do I go? I said, well, talk to Larry Kudlow and Steve Forbes. They wrote it for Christy Todd Whitman, a governor. They wrote it for George Pataki, a governor, Mayor Giuliani, and they helped Reagan. So the tax cuts that he's trying to work to make permanent will fix the economy. They will grow the economy. That's how we got out of inflation.
I don't understand. The more money you give to the people, the better the economy is going to be.
And that's why it's popular. In December, we polled 67% of all voters favor no tax on overtime. 71% of all Americans favor no tax on tips. Those are pro-growth measures. People will work. People, and they'll grow the economy. Half the voters don't even know the Trump tax cuts are going to lapse this year. We did a poll in February, Chamber of Commerce. 49% of all voters don't know the tax cuts will lapse, don't know they're going to have, if the Trump tax cuts lapse, we will have the largest tax increase in history. So we got to stop the Democrats from trying to raise taxes. They're all on record supporting that. We have to get his tax cuts made permanent, pass the tax cuts, grow the economy, and governors can do the same things in their states. And that brings back jobs, brings back industry. Then you can improve the schools. You'll have the resources, improve the schools. And there's so many things you can do.
And in Michigan, we just expanded the number of weeks that someone can be on state assistance. So that is going to prevent. And then I thought that was interesting. When we were in there, we were hearing from a small business owner who said, look, right now you're forgetting about the janitors. You're forgetting about the cleaning people. You're forgetting about all the little guys. And she said, right now for me, it's nobody wants to work more than 8 hours, because if they have to work more than 8 hours, they can make more from the state. And that's where, when you remove the tips from overtime, if you have a company where overtime is critical, and we had a foundry, so a lot of times 10 hours was a normal day if somebody was willing to work it, you know, and they can make a lot more money.
Yes.
You've got people that can make $200,000 a year at a factory. And I think that's what's lost on people. They go, oh, the blue collar workers, hey, these guys are living a lot better than you and me, you know, because hard work begets money. You know, you get advancement when you work hard. And that's always been the story in Michigan. That was one of the things when I talked to the Asian community in Michigan when I was running, they were like, we come from a culture of hard work.
Right.
This state has changed. The idea of hard work has kind of gone by the wayside. People are being told you shouldn't have to work hard and the government should support you. Well, we also wanted the American dream. And if people aren't working hard, we can't get people to help us build up companies. I think this is also the complaint. People say, oh, this person has this big company. They're taking home $1 million a year. Well, you have to remember, they're creating 300 jobs. Every person who is creating jobs is bringing the state up and bringing your taxes down.
Yep. And when you're talking about, you were just talking about workers getting benefits for not working.
Yes.
Then you're not a worker. And so
definition, yes, of not working.
So the Democrats are saying Republicans are going to cut Medicaid, which goes to needy families and people that can't afford it. But there's able-bodied adults who aren't required to work because the Democrats waived the workfare requirement, so you can get free health care that the other taxpayers are paying for you to get free health care, and you don't have to work. Mm-hmm. At least we're saying the Republicans, we can save a lot of money once we require them to go look for work or find work, then if you need health care, then you can get Medicaid.
Right.
And that's a very reasonable reform. And the other thing, too, is they say, you have legal immigrants in the country, millions of them. They're eligible for Medicaid in a lot of states. Why?
I've got more coming up with John McLaughlin, but first I want to talk to you about my partners at American Alternative. Markets are experiencing volatility with brief rallies, and then those are quickly erased by sharp sell-offs. The dollar is continuing to weaken on international markets, but gold has surged to all-time record highs. Wall Street analysts are warning of persistent market stress and advising their biggest clients to seek safety now. When markets swing this violently, your retirement savings are vulnerable. It's during these uncertain times that people need stable assets. For thousands of years, that asset has been gold, and that's why I'm proud to endorse American Alternative Assets. They take a different approach to precious metals. They get to know you, your family, and your needs. And they know precious metals protection is not for everybody, and that's why they only work with people that they know they can help. They provide quarterly check-ins to ensure your strategy stays on track, and 30% of their customers return and refer friends and family. American Alternative Assets is offering our listeners a free wealth protection guide and up to 5% bonus on your first purchase. Call 877-522-GOLD or visit tudorsgold.com right now. Don't wait until it's too late. Protect your wealth and secure your future today. That's 877-522-GOLD or visit tudorsgold.com. Now stay tuned. We've got more after this. Joni Ernst was also talking about if you start to break down the cost of regulations, and she's talking on the federal level, and that is shocking to me. She's like, you've got regulations that are costing trillions of dollars that were just created under Joe Biden. And I think that's what you're talking about when you say that people were looking at the comparison when you went to Donald Trump and said, as soon as they see what Joe Biden is going to do, you are going to rise up because people will say, I want that back. That's on a state level very critical, too, because those over-regulations cost the taxpayers money. And you don't realize that that is a hard conversation to have with people. I think that you have to have more simple conversations when you are campaigning. And that's where I think Republicans get in the weeds because we are like, we can solve this, we can solve this. And we speak over voters' heads or too technical for voters to want to engage in.
Right.
When you look at polls, where are we missing the boat looking into 26? When I know you're watching this constantly. You see candidates talking, right? You see, and you probably go, oh, why are they talking about that? What do we need to be talking about? Who do we need to be reaching?
By the way, those two measures on Medicaid reforms, 2/3 of the voters, I have a national poll coming out over the weekend, be on McLaughlinonline.com. 2/3 of the voters support those reforms.
Oh, really?
No Medicaid for illegal immigrants. And also workfare. If you're going to get Medicaid, you have to work for your benefits.
Because we're all doing that.
Right. And that's just typical. But it's right now, as far as what we need to do, we shouldn't be complacent about the last election. What Donald Trump did was historic and unique to Donald Trump. Whether candidates running for Congress, Senate, governor, playing like you're starting all over again. And you're going to have to draw contrast and play offense with the Democrats. They're now saying our tax cuts are tax cuts for billionaires.
Yes.
True. It's like if you raise taxes, and every Democrat in the House and the Senate has voted to raise taxes. They voted against this plan, Trump's plan to make the tax cuts permanent, the big, beautiful bill. It means that Democrat favors a $4.5 trillion tax increase that will raise taxes on the average American $2,000 to $3,000. We need to go play offense and make that part of our opponent's agenda.
And show who they really are, because let's not forget when Nancy Pelosi sat in front of her really impressive refrigerator with all of her $12 ice cream, and she said, this is just crumbs. $2,000 is a lot to me.
Yes.
$2,000 is a lot to my neighbors. Like, we don't live in those communities. I don't have a huge refrigerator with whatever, people that serve me ice cream in my own home. That's not my story. It's not most American stories. If you can show that they live in an alternate universe, they are now the billionaire class. They are now the ones that are taking care of their billionaire friends. And then I think it's funny when I hear Bernie Sanders talking about the oligarchies, because I'm like, this is your party that really started this, that brought in the billionaires that bought politicians.
Right.
And there are purchased politicians on their side of the aisle. And that to me is incredibly dangerous, because this is not genuine. That's why Kamala Harris couldn't resonate. It wasn't her speaking. She was a purchased politician.
By the way, if she spoke, we would have won by bigger. She spoke more.
I know.
But when you look at, when you just look at what the Democrats are trying to do, and when you talk about Nancy Pelosi, AOC, Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez, she's only a 29 favorable with the American public, 41 unfavorable. They know her.
Yeah.
They know she's a socialist and a very radical Democrat. Their idea about taxing billionaires, we're going to find out we're all rich someday, because their idea of raising taxes.
That's a good point.
When you think about tax on millionaires, because we do small business owner surveys for Job Creators Networks, 7 out of 10 of small business owners pay taxes through Subchapter S, their personal income taxes, which means that businesses of 10, 15 employees, that employer is paying his employees out of his personal income taxes. You raise their taxes, they're going to cut employees, they won't expand, they will reduce wages, they'll reduce hours, they'll react, because the government is taking more from them, that they'll have less to give to their workers or profits that they could help grow the economy.
We have so many regulations like that.
Yeah.
We've got the government now going into our small businesses and telling them, this is how much paid time off you have to have.
Yeah.
And that was the funny.
In Michigan?
Yes. Yeah.
Oh, geez.
They just passed that, the One Fair Wage Act, and they have paid time off, and they no tipped wage for restaurant workers. It's crazy.
No tip wage.
Yeah. They now have to make minimum wage. So I get restaurant owners.
It's hard to keep track of all these things.
The unintended consequences. And when you read it, you can get you're like, okay, I get why they think that this is good, but it's actually terrible. If you go 2 steps ahead and you look back, you go, okay, that's going to be a nightmare. Yeah, even in business, I've talked to business owners who are like, we had a 3-week paid time off. Now the government forces us to have these 70 hours, and they have to accrue them. And you have to record it with the government. It's insane to think that the government can dictate what your paid time off is going to be. Those are the types of things that it's not, we were talking earlier, it's not just that Trump has to roll these things back. The legislatures, the Congress, the lawmakers, state and federally, have to make changes to protect, because once he's out of office, this can all revert back.
Right.
And that's why we have to win the House and the Senate.
Right. The key thing this year is Republicans starting this year, in the odd year for the midterms, we have to play offense.
Yeah.
We have to go after the Democrats for those kinds of measures you specifically said, because now you're going to hurt small businesses. You're going to reduce the number of jobs. You're going to reduce the wages that the employees get paid. Sure, they'll be guaranteed, these steps towards socialism that they're passing. But look at Europe, it's stagnant. They don't grow their economies. Look, and they're socialist countries there. And they're moving right now because they got open borders, they got high inflation.
I just saw the Republican today is doing what the Democrats did here. They're saying that the right, the group of right, like right of center, whatever politicians over in Germany are now an extremist group.
Yeah, right. They did that. That's AfD. That's now the leading party in their polls.
So if you can designate,
the Christian Democrats wasn't aligned with the socialists to keep the anti-immigration party and the anti-government control party out of office. So it's just, but see, that's why our ancestors left those countries and came to America. Yeah, because you have freedom here.
So what does it mean to have AOC at 29% though? What does that mean for their party?
Well, Harris is still ahead at 30% in their primary. Newsom's got 8, but she's got 8. So I'm rooting for her, because if we want to see the next Republican president, she'd be a heck of a nominee for the Democrats.
Yeah, gosh, yes. That would be amazing.
But it's but the key thing here is we got to look at the midterms. In 2002, we did work for Jim Gilmore was the RNC chairman for President George W. Bush, and President Bush passed a tax cut that went into effect in the second year of the midterms, second quarter of the midterms in 2002. Plus, after 9/11, he put money into the economy so we didn't go into a recession. So in Virginia, in the odd year election, we had 52 out of 100 Republican seats in the legislature. We got 64. Fortunately, they took the techniques we had in Virginia to turn out Bush voters in the odd year. We did that across the country, and they made it a 72-hour program. In the midterm, with a growing economy, no recession, we picked up 2 Senate seats. We picked up 8 House seats. To defy the midterm jinx, we need President Trump's one big, beautiful bill, a growing economy. We need to keep reducing regulations. We need to play offense in all these races for Congress, Senate, governors, state legislatures, and basically bring the fight back to the Democrats. Act like we didn't win the election. Act like we're underdogs again.
That's exactly right.
And go and advance our agenda. And if we have the growing economy, which I think we will, because President Trump he's been focused on this. He said it at his rally in Michigan in Macomb County.
Yeah.
He said what he's going to do. And like you said, he's a businessman. When he tells you he's going to do something, it's hard to get his words at times. Something he doesn't make a commit, something nods or shrugs. But once he gives you his word and he says he's going to do it, he is going to do it. So in Macomb County, he said, we are going to pass this one big, beautiful bill. And that's what we need to do.
And he told people, stay in DC until you vote. Make sure you vote. So yeah, he is definitely focused on that. I think that we are seeing, we're seeing the jobs report today. The jobs report came out and the jobs report looks good. That I think is to the Democrats' chagrin. They're like, what the heck? How did he do this? Because they really don't understand his policies.
Yeah.
And there are too many people, I believe, that have been elected on their side that are activists and not business people. They've never signed a check.
Yeah.
They don't know what it means to stay up at night wondering how you will pay your employees. And Donald Trump has, and they go, oh my gosh, he's failed. He's gone bankrupt. That's the best possible scenario. Yeah. Because when you have failed, like you said, even as a candidate, if you've never failed, you've never learned.
Right. And when you think about, in terms of this election, a lot of times in states where the unions are left wing and we'll ask questions about it, and most of them are government employee unions, they're not private sector. Because like the president said, we won the auto workers, we won the construction and trades people. But when we see a union influence, we'll ask about, are you as anyone in the household work for a small business or own a small business? Most people don't own their own business, but they work for those businesses. Yeah. And they understand, and that network is bigger than the union network. And if you make the case that we need the biggest, this organization, Job Creators Network, is because small businesses create jobs in America.
Yes.
Not necessarily the big corporations, because they can leave in the drop of a hat, or they go to China or whatever, and they've been doing that. But the small businesses stay, build, grow. That's how you create jobs. And what we need to do is say, we need to grow these small businesses. What are we going to do? What are we going to do to help them grow? And you've got the small business owners here listening. You've been through it.
Yes.
Your family's been through it. And if we can grow the small business, we grow the jobs, then people don't have to rely on the government telling them, this is what you can do and this is what you can't do, because most often this is what you can't do.
That's what I find fascinating about the Democrats. And I know I've kept you longer than I should, but that's what I find fascinating is that in Michigan, Gretchen Whitmer has spent $1 billion. We have the SOAR fund. She's been trying to buy large businesses, and she's been going for, instead of going for the low hanging fruit, she's going for this big golden egg, right? I'm going to bring this big corporation in and putting all of her eggs in one basket. And that's been a disaster. We were supposed to, all of this $1 billion was supposed to bring in 60,000 jobs, 60,000. Right now on record, it's 13, maybe 13,000. So we've spent $1 billion, but you're exactly right. If you were to, the investment can be different than what people think. It can be opening up roads. It can be helping this company to buy land. It can be extending their property. There are so many things that you can go to, the low-hanging fruit, to build a couple hundred jobs here and there. And that's what I keep telling our legislature. I'm like, you have so many people that have come to the state and asked. And let me tell you, we were one of them.
Right.
So I know that the rejections are out there. Go through. That's your low-hanging fruit. Those are your jobs you can grow right now, right now.
Exactly.
That's where you can immediately start lifting. And as you grow those jobs, the more people you have, the lower your taxes can be. You know, what is the answer to lowering taxes? Have more people putting taxes in.
Yes.
Go back to the lower rates.
I mean, supply side economics works, and it works in the polls that, in effect, voters, we're all supply siders now. And that Chamber of Commerce poll that I told you, 64 to 20%, they support making Trump's tax cuts permanent. People want those tax cuts permanent. They want to have the money in their pockets. They want to be able to decide. After 4 years of high inflation under Biden and Harris and the Democrats, we can't afford a tax increase.
Yes.
And this is what they're trying to, the Democrat Party is trying to convince us, like, oh, we're just going to raise it on billionaires. No, they'll raise it on everybody.
Right. Exactly. And that's what we've seen in Michigan. We had an income tax reduction that was baked in. If we hit a certain number of surplus, we got this income tax reduction. We got it for 1 year. And then they had the liberal Supreme Court say, oh, actually, we don't think that has to be permanent. It doesn't have to be permanent. So raise the tax. So raises the taxes right back up. The people of Michigan deserve that money back. That's what they should get. And we should grow that. So I could talk to you. I really could talk to you for hours, but thank you so much, John McLaughlin. We appreciate you being here. Absolutely. And thank you all for listening to us on the Tudor Dixon podcast. It's exciting to be here in person with the Job Creators Network. We are learning so much that we're going to bring to you. But as always, for this podcast and others, go to TudorDixonPodcast.com, the iHeartRadio app, Apple Podcasts, or wherever you get your podcasts, and join us next time on the Tudor Dixon Podcast. Have a blessed day.